Okay, I'll get started, everybody. So thank you so much for attending live. This is in celebration of World Mental Health Day. We've had 3 speakers earlier today, and we're ending the day with the incredible Graham Nicholls. So thank you for joining, and if you're watching replay, thank you for listening in. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Graham, and then I'm going to hand it straight over to the legend that is Graham Nicholls. So I've known Graham quite a while now. We've actually put a course together. We have a course on Udemy, a coaching Kickstarter program, and Graham is incredible. His posh words are he's an international best-selling trainer and coach with, as of this evening, over 150,000 people have taken his courses in over 190 countries. This man has a wealth of knowledge and experience and a heart as huge as the world. His passion is always about helping. And specifically now, he loves to help coaches to master their skills so that they can go out there and build not just a sustainable business, but a business that feels ethical and close to our values. So he's a legend, I have to say. Graham is a legend. As we know, this masterclass, as usual, for IAPC&M. By the way, I am Lisa, head of CPD for the IAPC&M, and this masterclass will last no longer than 1 hour. There'll be the opportunity for Graham to deliver his presentation, and then opportunity for Q&A as well. So if when Graham's talking, if there are any questions, just put them in chat and we'll come to them. Myself and Graham will come to those questions, and then there's an opportunity at the end for questions too, and also to find out a little bit more about where you can find Graham beyond this masterclass. This masterclass is called The Truth About Mental Fitness. And I'm going to now hand it over to Graham Nicholls. Thank you, Graham.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and do this. It's awesome always to do stuff like this. I'm not sure about the word legend. You used it twice there, and that makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but maybe that's about my own limiting beliefs and not what you're saying. I don't know. Maybe that's something I've got to work on. But let me dive.
I promise I wouldn't say guru.
You did say, promise you wouldn't say guru, but you didn't. I didn't put anything about legend, did I? So I should have caveated that, shouldn't I, to start with? Let me just get my screen shared. Can everybody see my presentation? Just, if I can't see anybody's, so Lisa, can you see? That's the main thing.
Yeah, I can see that, and I've actually just read a comment from John Rice, who said he's one of your past students.
Oh, awesome. Hi, John. Thank you for being a student of mine. That's awesome. You're in good company. Yeah. Last month, I passed 150,000 students, which is just mind-boggling to me. It truly is. I never expected to reach 150,000 when I first started this, which was just over 7 years ago now. So we're talking about mental fitness tonight. It's become a kind of a new phrase that's going around. I think the first person I heard talk about it was Simon Sinek. If you've heard of him, seen his stuff, I heard him talk about mental fitness, and I dived a bit deeper in, as I tend to do. I don't tend to just do things by halves. I want to do it fully, and also, as I tend to do, is I put my own spin on it. I think how it would work for me as using it as an individual, but I also think about how I would use it as a coach as well. And that's really what I want to sort of go through tonight, is how you can use it as a coach for yourself, and also how you can use it to give a bigger impact to your clients and their outcomes. So that's what we're going to run through tonight. And now my presentation isn't going to move. Okay, let's do it this way. So what is mental fitness? Mental fitness, it's really the capacity to maintain a state of optimal functioning. And we do that by strengthening our resilience, by managing our stress, and by enhancing our emotional regulation. And it really is, and I've put it at the bottom of the screen there, as I was kind of working through this presentation, it really is emotional intelligence 2.0. It kind of is the next step on from emotional intelligence, in my humble opinion, of course. Now, the key components of mental fitness, self-awareness is it's the starting point for anything if you want to make a change in life, isn't it? We need to be aware of how we feel emotionally. We need to be aware of our thoughts. We need to be aware of our limiting beliefs. We need to be aware of everything that goes on with inside us if we truly want to change something, or if we truly just want to balance things out. We need to be self-aware about those things. So everything starts with self-awareness. We then, the next key component is emotional regulation, and that's kind of where emotional intelligence comes in. If you know the emotional intelligence framework, that starts with self-awareness. It then moves on to self-regulation. It talks about motivation and resilience. It talks about empathy, and it talks about relationships. And those 5 steps of emotional intelligence really do fit into that emotional regulation part. The next of the key components is our cognitive flexibility, knowing what our thought patterns are consciously, not just letting the thoughts run wild. In fact, funnily enough, Lisa and I were talking about this just before we came live, and we were talking about how life-changing it is when you finally realize that not every thought that comes into your head is true, but also B, that you don't have to engage with every thought. Now, I can tell you, as somebody who is a previous sufferer from poor mental health, and we're talking 23, 24 years ago now, I was diagnosed with stress, depression, and anxiety all at the same time. Because I figured, if you're going to do it properly, you might as well do it all at the same time. But one of the key things that changed that for me, that helped me to recover from that, was the realization that I didn't have to accept every single thought that came in. I didn't have to buy into it. I didn't have to engage with it. And that a lot of it is just rubbish. It's just claptrap. It's just not true. Those thoughts that come in, we have the opportunity to go, is that true? Do I want to pay attention to that? Or do I just want to let that float on by and then pick a different thought to get hold of? And that's where cognitive flexibility comes in. It is about being able to be flexible enough to say, yeah, I don't want to listen to that thought today. Thanks very much. I'm not interested in that one. I want to think about this, and then choose what we're thinking about. That's what cognitive flexibility is about. And that moves on nicely to the positive thinking habits, of making a habit of thinking not just positively, but empowering thoughts. Making a habit of getting up in the morning and the first thing we think about is something positive and empowering, of doing that throughout the day, of certain times of the day just stopping and thinking about positive, empowering thoughts. So we build that habit. So we build the pattern that's what we want to think of first. And the more we tell our nervous system, the more we tell our mind that that's what we want to do, then that's what happens. But it takes work, it takes practice, and it's a never-ending practice as well. And mental fitness enables us as coaches or practitioners or holistic practitioners, holistic coaches, whatever we want to call ourselves. It enables us to remain grounded. It enables us to remain effective and also resilient in the work we do, because we can be in some really tough situations sometimes. John Rice, I saw your title come up when you joined the room, and it was an executive mental resilience coach or something along those lines, I think. And as a mental health coach, I know exactly how difficult those places we can get into. But it doesn't just have to be us who are mental health coaches. Our emotions, we're feeling emotions right from the very get-go, aren't we? The moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep. And if you've had a nightmare, sometimes while we're asleep too. But we're feeling all the time. So as a coach, knowing how to deal with mental health and with emotional health is absolutely critical, no matter what type of coach you are. You could be a career coach. You could be an executive coach, a leadership coach. You could be a general life coach. You could be a female empowerment coach. You could be a male empowerment coach. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The truth is, you're going to have to deal with some emotional and mental health subjects, and that can be tough. So being able to stay resilient when somebody your client is sat in front of you, no matter whether it's in person or on a screen, and they are dealing with something deep, deep down, that can affect us. And that's a really tough place to be in. So we have to be resilient for that reason. And that's what mental fitness is all about, making sure we are fit enough mentally to deal with the situations that are thrown at us. I think Simon Sinek, when the part I was talking about, he said that he didn't really like the term mental health because we don't tend to talk in terms of physical health. We tend to talk in terms of fitness. If we want to improve something physically, we talk in terms of fitness. So why does it matter for us as coaches, as practitioners, as holistic practitioners, whatever we are? It ensures that you maintain clarity, focus, and emotional stability. It means you can be hyper focused on your client and their needs and provide an emotional space for them. And what do I mean by an emotional space for them? I mean a place where they can feel emotionally safe and psychologically safe so that they can talk about whatever they need to talk about, so that they can feel whatever it is that they need to feel. When you are mentally fit and you can remain stable, clear, focused, you know when to allow them to think and allow them to talk. And truly, when you know when to just shut the heck up and let them have their moment, that's what mental fitness is about. It's about giving us as coaches the tools to allow that psychological safe space, that emotional safe space for our clients to just be. So I've given you some examples there. So it could be that mental fitness improves decision making and emotional intuition during client sessions. There's something special happens when you're sat with a client and you're listening, truly listening to them, not just listening to the words, but listening to what's not being said. There's truly something special happens when somewhere in your mind, it gives you an inkling of what's really going on. And if you've had this happen to you as a coach, there's truly something special when you say, can I just ask you a question? Is it about this? Is what's really going on this, this, and this? And they just sit there to start with, completely flabbergasted that you picked this up when they've not said it. But also, there's a relief, there's a weight lifts off them when they know that somebody has truly understood even the things that are not being said. And mental fitness gives us that clarity and allows our intuition to run that way so that we can truly help our clients. It enhances empathy and communication. Mental fitness is about being able to be focused enough to actively listen, to listen with intent, not just to listen, as I said, to the words, but to listen to the emotion, to listen to what's not being said, to listen to the meaning behind the words, and truly communicate that back to them so that they know that you're understanding, that you're there for them. And also, mental fitness prevents burnout. It manages stress and workloads effectively. Because again, as a coach, dealing with any sort of mental or emotional health issues with your clients, no matter what type of coach you are, can be stressful. It can push you to your limits. Being mentally fit is like if you're having to lift a heavy weight every day at work, but your arms are not strong enough. So eventually they burn out and you can't lift anything else. But if you go to a gym and you work out your arms regularly, then you're going to be strong enough to keep lifting those heavy weights. Well, I can assure you mental and emotional health carries a weight with it as well. And it carries a weight on us as coaches. So how does it matter? What does it benefit your clients? Well, if we teach our clients how to be mentally fit, they can achieve their goals more efficiently. They remain emotionally stable in any situation and outcome. Imagine somebody coming to you who is a nervous wreck, or is suffering with deep stress, or is anxious about a job interview they're going to. Imagine being able to teach them how to be more mentally fit so that they can remain balanced when they go to that point. I've coached people who, and there's a lady who I was coaching who was looking for a promotion, looking to get the promotion to the next roll up. She works in Germany, but she works for one of the world's biggest automotive suppliers. So not the actual car manufacturers, but they supply parts and electronics, etc., to all of the major car manufacturers. And she had to go through a panel interview where she had 8 people, the 8 directors of the business, sit in front of her, and she had to go through an interview. And she was an emotional wreck when we first started working together. But I taught her some tools, I taught her some strategies and I taught her to use them on a regular basis. So she built a fitness up, and she became the vice president of the European operations for that business. And she, to this day, says that she wouldn't have got through that without our sessions. And that's about mental fitness. That's about being able to call on that mental muscle, that mental resilience muscle, when you absolutely need it the most. So the sort of client outcomes you can help your clients to achieve are increased self-awareness and self-worth. Because if you can stay emotionally regulated, if you can stay emotionally balanced and keep working through whatever stressful, anxious, frustrating situation there is, not only does it increase your self-awareness of who you are, but it also increases your self-worth, because look at what you can achieve that you might not have been able to achieve before. It enhances emotional stability, which isn't just great in the workplace, but it's also great in the home. Imagine being able to be emotionally stable in your relationship, where if instead of something blowing up into a massive argument, you could remain emotionally stable about it, almost take the emotion out of it and just talk about it instead of arguing about it. It really does give people a greater ability to handle the challenges that life throws at us. And come on, we're all coaches. We know that life is full of challenges. There's not too many days that go by without a challenge in life. There's not too many days that go by without a problem occurring. But problems and challenges are great because it means we're still living. You know, the only people without challenges and problems in their lives are 6 foot under and pushing up daisies. I just realised that you're not all from the UK. That might be a UK phrasing. So the only people without problems tend to be the ones that have passed on and left us. Everybody has problems, but it's how we handle them, it's how we deal with them. We can't necessarily control the problems and challenges, but we can control how we react to them. And that's what mental fitness gives us. Teaching your clients how to be more mentally fit benefits them in all aspects of life. When I was writing this presentation, I was thinking about listing some of the aspects of life that mental fitness helps in, and I got to such a long list. I just thought, I'm just gonna put them all down, because it's true. It doesn't matter whether it's in your relationships, as I've talked about, with your kids. Imagine teaching kids how to be more mentally fit. Imagine if we could teach that in school. Wouldn't that be wonderful? In your work, or if you're running your own business, or if you're with clients, or if you get cut off when you're driving on the road, instead of going to road rage, you just go, yeah, okay, fair enough. Or if somebody gets angry at you, being able to stay emotionally stable. It doesn't matter what aspect of life it is. Mental fitness benefits your clients. So imagine being able to teach them how to be more mentally fit. And I just wanted to throw this in here because I've talked a bit about the Simon Sinek thing, but I wanted to put a deeper description, a deeper definition of mental fitness versus mental health. And mental health is about our emotional well-being, whereas mental fitness is about proactively building skills to improve our mental fitness. It's those skills that help us to keep improving. as I said, imagine comparing mental fitness to physical fitness. It's that proactive approach to strengthening the mind, just as physical fitness is about strengthening the body. If you had a problem physically, if you wanted to improve your health physically, you might go to a gym. You might start walking or running or cycling or swimming. Basically, you would do something about it. You would put your body under some form of pressure, of stress, to improve its strength. That's what you would do to improve your physical. Well, to improve our mental health, to improve our mental fitness, that's what we have to do. We have to proactively stretch ourselves a little bit each and every day so that we build up that fitness. We build up the resilience muscles, the emotional muscles. In effect, coaches become like a personal trainer for the mind. That's what we can truly become as coaches. Imagine working with a client who is not emotionally regulated at all, is all over the place. And I've had a few, and I'm sure you have as well. Imagine being able to start them on a fitness regime, if you want to call it a fitness regime. If you go to see a personal trainer at a gym, they will start you on a regime of, you're going to do some running on a treadmill, some cycling. You're going to do weights on your arms today and weights on your legs tomorrow, and whatever it may be. Imagine having that sort of plan laid out for your clients, but with the mind. So it might be answering some sort of questionnaire one day. It might be, I don't know, adult art, adult coloring, stuff like that, stuff that really takes up the mind and focus. It might be meditation, it might be mindfulness. And you could do a 5-day, a 7-day program for them where they do different things each day to build their mental fitness. But each of them has to stretch their mental fitness a little bit more, because if we don't stretch the muscle, it's never going to improve. So that's the difference really between mental fitness and mental health. Mental health is all about our emotions. And I should have probably thrown in a definition about mental illness as well. People often get confused between mental health and mental illness, thinking they're the same things, and they're really not. Mental health is about our emotions. So depression, anger, stress, anxiousness, all of those things, they are emotional states in human beings. Mental illness is when you're talking about getting into things that truly need medicating, that take people's control away from themselves. And while it might feel like poor mental health sometimes takes control away from you, it doesn't really. It's about whether we can choose to take control back. Hopefully that's a good enough definition between mental health and mental illness as well. Threw that in there without preparing it on the slides. So when I first started investigating mental fitness, the one thing I always try and do, and if you've taken my courses, you'll know that I try and put a framework to stuff, because as a coach, I love a framework to work with, but also my clients love frameworks to work with. It's how the human mind works. If we've got a framework to work to, we can see it, hear it, feel it, and really work with it. So I put together this 5-step framework for mental fitness. And you've seen a part of it already when we started talking about mental fitness earlier in the presentation. So the first point is self-awareness. It's the starting point for any personal improvement. It truly is. Being able to be consciously aware of what we're doing, of what we're feeling, of what we're thinking, is a huge step forward to being able to change that. It's my belief that we struggle to change things that we're not consciously aware of. Now, there are tools that can help us with doing that. So a coach might use things like NLP or hypnotherapy or EFT or anything along those lines that can help us with that. But the more consciously aware we are of those things, the better is the truth. And the more consciously aware we are of our emotional patterns, certainly the easier it is to change them. And we're going to go on to talk about that in a bit. Emotional regulation is the next part of the framework. So understanding those emotional patterns and how to control them. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. I'm going to give you a framework for doing that as well. Yes, I do love a good framework. You're going to get to know that about me. I do love a good framework. So I'm going to give you a framework to deal with that. But it's something really easy to use. And it's something that I created for myself first, and then found that I could use it to go on and work with others and help others with it as well. Next is the cognitive flexibility that we talked about. It allows you to approach every situation with adaptability, with being able to adapt your emotions and your thoughts and your actions to that particular situation, so that you don't get overwhelmed, so you don't get overstressed or anxious or angry or frustrated. Having that cognitive flexibility to say what's needed here and do that, and what's not needed here and then don't do that. Well, that's what cognitive flexibility is. Next up is resilience building. And it's my favorite phrase. I say it all the time when people talk to me about resilience. Resilience is what shows up when your motivation goes on vacation, because we all know the motivation is fleeting. We can wake up one morning and feel the most motivated people in the world, and then by the afternoon or the evening, and we're absolutely shattered. Our motivation goes, thanks very much, I'm off for the day, bye now, and away it goes. Or it packs its bags and it goes off to somewhere sunny while we're sitting in cold, wet, rainy England or wherever you are around the world. Our resilience is what's key, because on those days where motivation isn't with us, resilience helps us to keep going. Resilience helps us to keep putting one foot in front of the other and being consistent with our actions and our reactions and our behaviors and our emotions and our thoughts. And that's the tough bit, because on the days where we're tired, on the days where we haven't got enough sleep, on the days where things have been going wrong, and then if something else goes wrong, it's resilience that says, hang on a minute, don't lose it with this. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't get overawed. Don't get frustrated. Don't get stressed. Hold yourself and be adaptable to the situation. That's when resilience really plays its part. When you've had enough already and something else happens, that's when resilience steps in and goes, I've got this from here. And that's super important. And then the final part in the framework is conscious thoughtfulness. And again, that's about understanding which thoughts to engage with and which not to engage with. Now, if I were to ask you to sit there just for a couple of minutes, in fact, I think this is probably a really good thing to do. If hopefully you're taking notes, and if you're not, fair enough. But if I was to ask you just for 2 or 3 minutes to think about a tool or a strategy or an action that you could get your clients to do for each one of those that would build up their muscles in each one of those, what would you say? So let's think about self-awareness first. What would you say is a good action? And you don't have to answer this in the meeting, just to write it down for yourself. What would you say is a good action for improving self-awareness? Now, if it was me, I might say something along the lines of journaling at the end of the day, looking back throughout our day and thinking about what we did, the behaviors, the actions and reactions, and noting them down. So that might be a great starting point. It could be journaling throughout the day when something's happened and we've reacted to it, and noting down just quickly how we've reacted to it and how we feel about that. That might be something else to do. Maybe you could come up with something that would be a good action to take to start building the self-awareness muscle. What about emotional regulation? How would you build the emotional regulation muscle? Sorry, what's an action or a tool that your clients could use to build their emotional regulation muscle? And while you write your own down, I am going to give you one in a few minutes that will really help you with that. So what's one you could use with that? And I won't put mine forward because I'm going to give you it in a minute. What about cognitive flexibility? What's an action or a tool or a strategy or something your clients could do to improve their cognitive flexibility? Maybe that's journaling too. Maybe that's being more conscious on a daily basis. Maybe that's meditating and being able to focus, training our minds to focus in one particular area is a great way to improve cognitive flexibility so that we can choose where we're focused, depending on the situation, the circumstance. What about resilience building? How do we build resilience? Well, for me, resilience building is putting ourselves in tough situations and learning how to deal with them. That tends to be the main way we build resilience. But resilience is also built through consistency. So on the days where you don't feel like doing something, doing it anyway, putting one foot in front of the other, taking a step even when you don't feel like it, builds resilience. It's like going to the gym and not being able to do too much because you're tired that day, but still managing to lift that one weight that just tweaks those muscles in your arms a little bit. That's about building resilience, and we can do the same with our minds. And what about conscious thoughtfulness? What's a tool or a strategy or an action you could get your clients to do to understand which thoughts to engage with and which not, to be more consciously aware of their thoughts? Is that journaling as well? Is that stopping for 5 minutes every hour to think about what thoughts have gone through your mind and which ones did you engage with, whether they're the right ones, whether they're the wrong ones? Something along those lines. So that's the 5-part framework for mental fitness that I came up with. Now, that's mine. I haven't stolen that from anywhere. I've created that myself. If you wanted to put together your own framework, you're more than welcome to do so. I don't think there's a defined framework out there for mental fitness. But what it is about is taking actions to proactively improve our mental fitness on a daily basis. This isn't something that we do occasionally. It isn't something we do for a while and then stop. Much like wanting to be physically fit, we have to keep doing it to be able to keep up with it. And I think there are some tools and some strategies around those 5 things that could really help your clients, but maybe just help you as well. Imagine if you were to take some of those actions or use those strategies or tools, maybe they'd just help you as well. So I wanted to give you, first of all, some actionable steps, some ideas that I came up with that you can take on if you want to as coaches. So cognitive reframing is a really powerful way to be cognitively flexible. And it's the act of consciously changing the way we perceive our challenges, or actually the way we perceive anything. If you're a coach who's done some NLP training, you'll know what reframing is. So just some basic examples I gave you there is from seeing failure as the end to seeing it as an opportunity to learn and grow. That's a really powerful reframe because so many people get to the point of failure and stop. They run away because failure is the worst thing ever. And actually, failure is nothing more than a set of results we weren't expecting. So see it as an opportunity to learn and grow. That's a really powerful reframe. Seeing a setback as a negative and reframing that as to seeing setback as the start of a comeback. Again, people see setbacks as a negative thing and, oh, well, it's been a setback, so I won't bother anymore type of thing. Or you can see a setback as, okay, that's a setback. My next step is going to be bigger than the one previously. This is my comeback. Or seeing no as a negative, to seeing it as just another step towards a yes. Again, people, and I see lots of coaches, I talk to lots of coaches who get a potential client into a 30-minute discovery call, or whatever you want to call your 30-minute free call with potential clients. And they get a no at the end of it and they're devastated. They're absolutely devastated, and it can possibly put them off from ever doing it again. And do you know what? I'm gonna sit up and I'm gonna put my hand up. I did that. Yeah, when I started out, I got my first potential client and they said no, and I hated it. And I took myself away from it for quite a while. And then I went and did it again, and somebody else said no, and I hated it. So I took myself away from it. And I did that quite a few times until I realized that every no got me one step closer to a yes. And if it took me 100 no's to get to that one yes, then that's what I was going to do. And that's another reframe. It's about whether you see no as a negative or whether you see no as just another step towards a yes. So that's about cognitive reframing. And there's hundreds of examples you can think of that, I'm certain. So actionable step number 2 is strengthening emotional regulation. So that these are techniques to understand and manage our emotions effectively. So some examples there would be the pause practice technique. So actively stopping before reacting emotionally. And I've used this with my clients, and I've actually used it with myself, is the best way to do this I've found is to imagine a big red pause button. You know, like the emergency stop buttons you see, they look like a big red mushroom. And imagining one of those in your mind with pause written across the top of it, and then seeing your own hand in your mind slam on top of it as you shout the word in your head, pause. What it does is it stops you in that moment before you react emotionally. And that builds emotional regulation, because all of a sudden you go, for maybe something's made you, that would normally make you really angry, and you go, yeah, and you get to about there and you go, no, pause in your mind, and you go, okay, I need to think about this differently because I've paused. That's about strengthening emotional regulation. Emotional reflections, I talked about briefly a minute ago about journaling at the end of the day, reflecting on your emotional responses and how you can improve on them. Thinking about the things that you responded to really well, and also the things that you responded to not quite so well as you'd like, and how you can improve on that. And then pattern recognition, consciously recognizing the emotional patterns that we run so you can identify and change them when needed. And again, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in a couple of minutes. But first, there's one more actionable step, and then we're going to jump onto them. So actionable step number 3, cultivating that conscious thinking muscle. And this is training the brain to focus only on the thoughts you want it to. And this does take training, and it does take consistent training. It's consistent practice, and will be forever, because our mind is always going to throw negative thoughts at us, disempowering thoughts at us, challenging thoughts at us, because that's how our mind works. We've just got to train it so that we don't listen to those, and we train it to think and listen to the positive ones. So thought journaling is a really powerful one. Write down the thoughts you experience in a day, and particularly the ones you don't want to experience again, so that you can recognize them the next time and push them away quicker. Or snap banding. Now you'll notice on my right wrist here, I don't know if you could still see me, but I have a snap band on my wrist, and I use that whenever something's getting on top of me, or if I'm getting a bit stressed or overwhelmed and I need to break away from those thought patterns. Snap that, and it's suddenly, okay, yeah, I need to stop now. So using a snap band as a conscious reminder when negative thoughts start to break through is a really powerful way to do it. Now, again, if you've done some NLP or some hypnotherapy, you could actually anchor something positive into that snap band if you really wanted to, if you've worked on that sort of stuff before. And of course, mindful meditation is just one of the best things. It's one of the best parts of my day. I go out for a walk first thing in the morning, and then when I get back, I sit and meditate. And it's like going from that exercise down to just completely shutting down. It's just such a relief. It's a release almost. It's just wonderful to be able to sit there and do that. But what meditation can help you do is focus on one thing, and one thing only at a time. It trains our brain to just be focused on one thing. And that's where true strength comes from. If we can focus on the one thing that we need to focus on in that moment, then it's true power. And there was a lot of talk many years ago about multitasking, and multitasking is the enemy of anything good. It's the enemy of productivity, it's the enemy of efficiency, it's the enemy of quality, and it's the enemy of mental health and mental fitness, because multitasking fries the brain. It truly does fry the brain, and it means we can't focus enough. So training your brain to focus through meditation is a truly powerful way. So I've been telling you that I'm going to show you how to recognize your emotional patterns. So we're going to do that right now. So this is something I call the PALM method. The PALM framework, if you want to call it that. This is something that I developed for myself so I could truly remember nice and easily how our emotional patterns work. And if I could remember how those emotional patterns work, then I could change them. So this is what I developed. So if you, you've got it on the screen there, but if you were to hold your left hand up in front of you and imagine the word palm written under the bottom of the fingers, on the inside knuckle of the fingers, like you can see there on the screen. Each of those letters stands for something that shows us our emotional patterns. So the P stands for our physical association to that emotion. Now, every emotion we feel, every emotion we experience has a physical association to it. And also, and this is a truly powerful bar, every emotion we experience also has a particular breathing pattern to it, which is part of our physical association to it. So if we can change our physical association, then we can change the emotion, change how we're feeling. So if you imagine changing your breathing patterns, literally can change your emotional state. If you've done any breath work, and I certainly know Lisa's been doing a lot of breath work and breath work training, then you'll know that you can change your emotions virtually instantaneously by changing your breathing patterns. It's a super powerful way to change how we feel. But let's think about some other things that we can change physically. If I was to say that off to my left-hand side here, there was somebody who was depressed. No, do you know, I'm not going to use depressed. I'm going to use angry. Completely and utterly raging angry. What are they doing physically? Now, I'm guessing you're thinking similarly along the line to me. They're probably, their shoulders are hunkered up. They've probably got their fists clenched. They've got their teeth clenched and their face all screwed up. They're probably going really red, and all their muscles are tight and everything. Excuse me a second. That's what they're doing physically, right? That's their physical association to anger. Excuse me a second, we'll have a drink. That's their physical association to anger. Now, if to my right-hand side here, there's somebody who is happy and joyful, are they doing physically what the angry person is doing? Of course they're not. They're probably shoulders back, head high, big smile on the face, wide-eyed, smiling. They're nice and relaxed. Their shoulders are back. Their arms are, they might be down by their side, or they might be having a big party and throwing them in the air. Well, that's their physical association to happiness and joy. Now, if you were to choose to switch from one to the other, let's say that you were raging angry and you'd got yourself all tensed up and your teeth were grinding and all of that kind of stuff, and you were to choose to physically go, do you know, I don't want to feel like this physically. So you dropped your shoulders and you put your head back and you smiled and you opened your eyes wide and you relaxed and maybe you threw your hands in the air like a pie. Would you change how you felt? Well, the truth is you probably would. You might be able to go back to that anger really, really easily because going back to the full side of it changes it back. Now imagine doing something radically different with your body. So going for a run or a cycle or going and diving in some change how you felt from that raging angry part. Well, the truth is, yes, it would. Because our physical state affects our emotional state. So why would we not want to change it? So that's the P. That's the physical association. So the A, which is under the middle finger, is about our attention. What we pay attention to in that moment creates our emotional state. So this person onto my left, who's really angry, is he thinking about his next holiday that's coming up in a few weeks, where he's going to kick back on the beach and have a couple of beers? No, he's not. He's thinking about everything that's made him angry, the things that he's perceived has made him angry, and probably he's making some stuff up in his head that he thinks would make him angry if that was to happen. Ever done that? Yeah, me too. We have this great capacity to just create stuff, just compound the way we're feeling, don't we? As human beings, we truly do. So he's paying attention to all those things that make him angry. Now, this person over to my right here, are they paying attention to things that make them angry? Heck no. They're paying attention to their holiday that's coming up where they're going to sit on the beach and have a couple of beers. They're ecstatic about that fact. What we pay attention to directly affects our emotional state. So that's the A. Under the ring finger, there's the L. The L is such a crucial point. It's about our language. It's about not just the language we say out loud, but the language we say in here in our head. And we've already talked about our conscious thoughtfulness, right? That's the language we use up here. Now, again, my friend to the left here, who's completely raging angry, is he using nice, calm, happy, joyful language. No, I'm not going to say what type of language he's using because we're being recorded and I don't want to get bleeped out too often. But you can imagine the sort of language that's going on in his head. But this person to my right here, her language or his language, whatever, isn't angry language at all, is it? Their language is all about how happy they are, how joyful they are, how amazing life is, or something along those lines. And in particular, when it comes to language, it's about the questions we ask ourselves. You see, as human beings, we are continually asking ourselves questions. We're continually asking ourselves questions about what we should focus on and what we should do about it. And there's a third question, but that's going to be the M in a minute. So I'll come to that one in a minute. But those questions define how we feel as well. Because if we ask ourselves a negative, disempowering question, we get a negative, disempowering answer. Whereas if we ask ourselves a positive and empowering question, we get a positive and empowering answer. Our brains answer in the way that we ask. That's the truth of it. And by the way, our brains can't help but answer a question. It's what we're set up to do. So if I was to say, sit here and ask you to tell me, what is 2 plus 2? There's a good chance you answered. In fact, you had to answer. Your brain somewhere had to answer. Hopefully it answered 4, otherwise we might have a problem. But the truth is, whatever the question we receive, we have to answer it. But we answer it in the way that we ask it or that somebody else asks it. So the key to language is asking ourselves the right questions in the right frame. So making sure they're positive and empowering and not negative and disempowering. So that's L, that's your language. The M stands for our meaning. The meaning we create in that moment also helps create the emotion. Because as human beings, we are meaning-making machines. It's what we do. So I was talking to you, I said about the two. So the 3 questions we ask ourselves every day and in every situation are what's going on? What does this, and what do I have to do about it? What does this mean? And what do I have to do about it? Those or variants of those are the 3 questions we ask in every situation because we have to define a meaning to everything. Have you ever spilt milk on the floor in the morning and gone, oh, this is just going to be one of them days? Or something along those lines. Maybe you have, because you created a meaning in that moment that this is just going to be one of those days. That's what we do. Matey off to the left here created the meaning that whatever happened made him angry. It didn't. He made himself angry. He chose his physical association. He chose what to pay attention to. He chose the language and the questions to ask in his head, and therefore he defined the meaning. And the person off to my right here did exactly the same to be happy and joyful. They chose a meaning that was happy and joyful. And we create meanings every single day, every single moment of every single day. So, and I'm just checking time because we haven't got much time for questions and answers. So I'm just going to briefly run through the next bit. Do yourself a favor. Get yourself a sheet of A4 paper and draw a line straight down the middle. And at the top of the left-hand side, not right now, but when we finish this at some point over the next few days, at the top of the left-hand column, write down a disempowering emotion that you want to feel less of in life, one that you really don't want to experience, and then an empowering emotion at the top right of the right-hand column that you want to feel more of in life. And then figure out your patterns, figure out what you do physically, figure out what you pay attention to, figure out what you say to yourself and the questions you ask yourself, and figure out the meaning you create because of that. That will show you the patterns of your emotions. And if you know the patterns of your disempowering emotion, so you can recognize them consciously, and you've got a replacement for them of your empowering emotion, guess what? You can choose to switch your physical association to something more empowering, switch your attention to something else, change the language you're using, and therefore create a different meaning. And that's how we use emotional pattern regulation and recognition, rather, to regulate our emotions. Okay, I realize I've rabbited on, and I can do that because I get very passionate about this. So I realize there's only 10 minutes left. So so we're into questions. So let me just stop sharing my screen and we'll get to the questions. I need a drink, 1 second. man, I can wrap it on when I get going, can't I? I do apologize. That was going to be 45 minutes, but hey, there we go. So I can see there's been loads of stuff in the chat,
We love
but
to
if anybody's
listen.
got... Sorry, say that again.
I said, I think my signal's bad again, but I said we love to listen, so it's all good.
Awesome. Cool. Right.
Does anyone have any questions? There's been loads of chat happening.
Anybody got a question for me?
One second.
Okay. She's disappeared.
Taking my camera off.
Okay. Okay, while Lisa's doing sorting that camera, anybody got any questions? Come on, somebody must have a question. You've all gone quiet. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Have I bored you all to death?
I'll ask you one, Graham.
John, thank you.
How do you, Graham, in your palm technique, encourage the consistent, and I know for myself, daily, sometimes 4 times a daily action that changes the neural pathways? Because it's that well-trodden response and pathway that we normally choose, isn't it? So how and what tools can our client and us use to ensure that we do this? What's the trigger, or do we set an alarm every 3 hours, or?
Well, funny enough, that's exactly what I was going to say. Depending on the research you read, it can take between 30 to 90 days to set in a new habit. Some, depending on which one you read, I've read 67 or right up to 90. But absolutely that. Every few hours, set an alarm on your phone or your watch and just stop for 5 minutes and think about, in that last period of time, what's an emotion that you would like to change, or what's something that you really like that you would like the pad of, and just have a pad near you that you can write the palm down on and notice those patterns. And what happens is, the more you do that, the more your brain goes, oh, he wants to recognize that, so I will make a point of showing you that when it comes up again. And that's how we build that consciousness. The key then is to changing it. If it's an emotion we don't want to feel so much of, the key is then to changing it, having something to change it to. Because again, the moment we start to replace it, that old habit's going to go, whoa, stop right there. I'm sitting here. This is my house. And we have to keep replacing it to knock that one down. But the quicker we can replace it, the quicker response time we can make by consciously thinking about it, recognizing it, and changing it, the quicker we knock that old habit down and build the new one up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Graham.
Awesome. Thank you. Great question.
Thank you, John. Anyone,
Okay,
can you all hear me now? Am I back in the room?
You're back in the room.
Thank you. Any more questions there? That was a great question, John. Thank you.
Was there any questions in the chat? Obviously I haven't had to keep up with it, so.
Just people commenting and kind of reflecting on what you were saying. John talked about listen has the same letters as silent. Trina gave examples. You can use 24 hours self-talk, observation, and journaling. Just kind of offering ideas from yourself and what you were talking about. I got a yes.
Regulation through breath.
My first discovery call, I got a yes, and I absolutely was petrified that it was a yes because I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh my God, what if I serve them and it all goes wrong? So I needed some emotional regulation on the yes. So just a lot of people just chatting away with reflections as you were talking. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay. As we come to the end. Yeah. Sorry, go on, Graham. Go on.
No, over to you.
I know my signal's a bit dodgy, I apologise. As it's coming to the end, we're just going to take 60 seconds reflection. So if you can, as we know, this is a CPD webinar, it's a CPD masterclass, and we can go away and then life takes over and we forget what we've learned. So just use the next 60 seconds to reflect on 2 or 3 key points that you've taken from this evening's webinar, and then share them in the comments. And I will start counting now. Okay, so thank you for that. I've put one of my biggest takeaways there, which I think, quite often society does look at mental fitness, healthy eating, etc., going to the gym, like Graham spoke about, and actually mental fitness in terms of our emotional well-being is just as important, if not more, than all the other areas of health, isn't it? So yeah, that was kind of the biggest takeaway from me. I just love listening to Graham. I always learn so much, so thank you for sharing the information, Graham. John Rice, thank you. Palm is a great framework. Yeah, I learned Palm a few years ago from Graham, and I've used it ever since with myself and with people I work with. We don't have to engage with every thought. No, we don't. No, thank you. Give everyone a couple more minutes. So Graham, where can we find you? Where can people find you?
So my website is thepriorityacademy.com. You can find me on there. All of my courses are on there. You can find me on Facebook. There's a Priority Academy Facebook group that's got something like 24,500 people in it, and is really busy every day. There's loads of people asking questions. You're welcome to join that. That's free to join. And also at the moment, particularly at the moment, I'm growing on LinkedIn. So if you want to come and find me on LinkedIn, you can find the Priority Academy on there, but find me particularly. I'm sharing stuff daily and engaging with stuff daily. So come and find me on there, and you'll see a lot of fresh content on there that I don't share in Facebook or on my courses. It's a whole bunch of other stuff. So yeah, any of those platforms. But the website's the Priority.
I'm testament to that, Graham. I found you on LinkedIn, and we have a 30-minute meeting, don't we, next week? So I look forward to...
Indeed. We do indeed.
Small world. Brilliant. Yep. Okay, so thank you, everybody. This is the final webinar for our way of giving back in terms of World Mental Health Day. So thank you so much for listening in. This will be available on recording, so you can watch on recording. Please share with people who you know would benefit from Graham's words this evening. Please do share it. It will remain on the socials for a couple of weeks, and then it kind of moves from there and goes into our, if you're involved in IAPC&M, it'll go into your online platform. But for the next couple of weeks, it is available for anybody to watch. So do share it if you think Graham's words would help somebody who you know. And thank you, Katerina. Helpful to be aware that it's us who choose our thoughts and what we feed our brains. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one final bit before we go, I really liked what Graham said at the beginning about how it's important for us, it doesn't matter what kind of coach we are and who we're supporting, we're always going to work with people who are going through their own life challenges. That's often why they're coming to us, and with that life challenge is that those mental, emotional subjects are going to come up. So the more resilient we are, the better we can hold that space for those who we serve. And I thought that was kind of just one of those moments, a boom moment. So thank you for sharing that, Graham. Thank you so much for your time, Graham, and sharing your knowledge. And thank you, everybody, for listening in.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Take care.